right now.
Hello, and welcome to the sports show featuring Jay and Nate. I'm your co-host, Jay Kim.
And I'm Nate Earl.
And so last episode we talked about Cincinnati Bengals doing okay with AJ Green and Jerome Simpson as wide receivers. Turns out Jerome Simpson will not be playing for the Bengals this year.
Right.
And we also talked about Tannehill versus Matt Moore for Miami.
And David Gerard. He's also.
Well, we didn't really talk about David Gerard.
We didn't, but he's also one of
and
the quarterbacks.
actually, David Gerard is predicted to be number one going
exactly.
in. And Tannehill is actually competing for the number 2 spot.
Which I'm actually really surprised about.
Yeah, I didn't really think Gerard was that good with the Jags, but...
Right. Anyways, so with Jerome Simpson, what did you want to say about that?
Oh, just he's not on the team anymore. I don't know how big that will make because he was their number 2 receiver, but they still have AJ Green. They still have free agency.
Yeah, I mean it's not a big deal. They'll be okay without him. He had that spectacular touchdown reception, like front flip last season, but other than that, he was just a solid receiver, so they won't miss him too much. As far as the Tannehill versus Gerard versus Moore, Miami quarterback situation, yeah, like Jay said, obviously David Gerard is the predicted starter. But I'm really surprised because they got a quarterback at the number 8 spot. I kind of assumed that Tannehill would start from the getaway. So yeah, surprised Gerard's ahead.
Yeah, so we asked you guys for a request, and we got one.
Hey, I mean one request, it works. Yeah, so our first request, or actually our only request, is just to talk about Cam Newton and his expectations. So why don't you get started?
Well, obviously Cam Newton had a lot of expectations last year coming in. Well, I guess not really expectations, more like not a lot of people believe that he can play.
Right. At least play quarterback the same way he played quarterback in college, because it was a very physical way he played it. He ran a lot, took a lot of a beating, and
which
yeah.
I don't think that was a really fair assessment. Cam Newton was definitely not like Tebow. His last year, he threw a lot more. His championship game.
He's a much more accurate passer than Tebow.
And he's not necessarily run first like Tebow was in college. I say was because Tebow's not necessarily run first now.
Debatable, but yeah, I feel you.
From play to play.
I mean, I think Tebow still has a kind of like a run first instinct in him. I feel like it's something he's trying to get rid of. Like the coaches are trying to tell him, Tim, you gotta just stay in that pocket. You gotta look for your receivers, go through your reads and find them, and you have to run at the very last option. So he's trying to still get rid of that, in my opinion. So.
And Newton also had a lot of the personality questions coming to last year.
Right.
Which I also kind of thought was unfair. I mean, I guess he had a little bit of personality issues, but he definitely fixed them by the time the drafts came up. He went to the combine and he did every exercise. Most quarterbacks don't throw at the combine because they don't want to be scrutinized, but Cam Newton just went out there. He threw his very best. He ran his very fastest. He did his best in everything. And I think you can really tell that he was trying to go out there saying, hey, I don't have a character issue. I might have in the past, but I'm trying to show that I'm growing up and I'm maturing.
Yeah, I thought personally he was just very egotistical coming into the NFL, and I really wasn't a big fan of him. But after he just produced those numbers and had those 400-yard games in the beginning of the season, you just couldn't doubt the talent, and I've kind of come to like him a little more. So.
And there's a whole sophomore slumps curse thing that a lot of fans like to talk about. I honestly don't think that he's gonna suffer from that. You look at some of the more recent quarterbacks, I don't think he really saw too much of that happening. Matt Ryan did very good his second year. Mark Sanchez still took his team to the conference game.
Right.
Or as some people put it, his team dragged Mark Sanchez to the conference game.
That's probably more like the correct statement, but we're not going to get into that.
Flacco, he did pretty good. So, I don't think this whole sophomore slump thing is really going to affect Cam Newton. He's only going to get better. He felt like he now knows what it feels like to be on a losing team with the Carolina Panthers.
Right. He's gone through some hardships, I guess. Yeah.
And I don't know exactly how many games the Carolina Panthers won, but I'm pretty sure they didn't go 8-8. They were a little less.
They were less than that. I'm not sure either. It was definitely like 6-10 or something like that. But as far as expectations this season, as far as how well his team is going to do and how far he's going to take them, I think they have a legitimate chance of being one of the top two teams in the NFC South. I think the Saints still have the stranglehold in that division, but I think the Falcons are going to stumble a little bit this season. I just feel like they are. Then the Buccaneers are going to be better with Vincent Jackson, in my opinion. So I think the the Carolina Panthers are going to be a top two team in the NFC South, and I think they're going to be a playoff team, to be honest.
I don't know if I would say that they'd be a playoff team. The NFC is a really tough conference to be in, but I definitely agree that they'll probably one of the better teams in the NFC South. Last year, or the year before last, before Cam Newton, Carolina Panthers was obviously the worst in the NFC South, and that was a really tough division at that time.
Right,
I remember we were talking about them being the best division in the entire NFL, arguably.
right.
And then last year Tampa Bay didn't do too well. There's a lot of character issues just in the entire team.
It was just a bad season.
Um, Matt Ryan finally lost a lot of his home games. A lot of the games he won last year was also due to luck. There's a there was an interception
Luck.
that Roddy White.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking about the quarterback.
Uh,
Sorry, go
there
ahead.
was a interception that Roddy White happened to fumble so that they can win the game. There's a lot of dropped passes, like a lot of the games in the earlier in the season. That might have been the year before, actually. I can't remember
Me
now.
neither. Yeah, I'm not saying that the Panthers are going to the playoffs. Might have sounded like that. I think they have a really good shot, but with the NFC being just stacked from top to bottom, at least the top half of just really quality teams, they might just miss it. Especially with the NFC East just being ridiculously good this year, in my opinion. So they might just miss it, but I think they'll be a top two team in the NFC South, to be honest. Did you want to talk about RG3 and Luck now?
Yeah. So our next topic are the two biggest quarterback names this year: Robert Griffin III and Andrew Luck. And
That's
I guess
right.
we could throw in Tannehill in there,
Nope, we're
but
not.
quite
We're
honestly, he's
not
not
throwing him
gonna
in there.
come even close.
You're not even going to start. So, yeah, RG3 versus Luck. We just wanted to talk about who's going to have a better year, who's in a better position to have a better year, and just who's a better quarterback. And who's RG3 is going to have a better year, just because he has more options, not options around him, but he has a better team in general. The Washington Redskins defense was, I believe, 13th last year, which is pretty solid, and that was with a really bad offense. So I think they're going to improve this year, and RG3 is just going to do just great things with that offense. They don't have the best weapons. They have Pierre Garcon, which is a speed threat, and he'll have fun throwing the ball to him in deep for deep throws. And obviously you have Santana Moss, who's a solid veteran, and they got Fred Davis coming back from a 4-game suspension from last year. And I don't know who the running back is who's going to start. It's either going to be Ryan Terrain maybe, or I'm not sure. Yeah, it could be Ryan Terrain. So I think he just has a better overall team. I think he'll be more successful. But going with that with Luck, um, Andrew Luck, he's got Reggie Wayne and he's got Kobe Fleener as tight end at Stanford as like a um, as an option. But I think overall the team just isn't that good. The Colts lost everyone: Peyton Manning, Dallas Clark, Jeff Saturday. Um, Joseph Adai, you name it. They just lost everyone. All they got left now is the two pass rushers, Mathis and Dwight Freeney, and the people I mentioned in offense. So I just think it's more of a rebuilding year for the Colts, whereas I think the Redskins have more of an opportunity to make some noise.
And on top of that, Luck had a lot of hype surrounding him coming into the draft, but RG3 has a lot of hype in his team right now. Washington Redskins has been looking for a franchise quarterback for a really long time.
Forever.
Um, they thought they had one in Donovan McNabb. They thought they had one in Rex Grossman. Um, They even thought they had one in Jason Campbell, and all of those has fallen flat for one reason or another.
Right.
And with RG3, the number 2 overall draft pick, a lot of people thought that Colts might actually take RG3 instead of Luck too.
Right.
So here's a guy with real talent that you can't argue against. You watch a lot of his football games in college, and you can tell that he has real talent. Um, you look at his combine stats, and I know a lot of other quarterbacks had great stats and lots of great games in college, but and you can't really tell that right away. But RG3 also has a complete team, more or less.
Exactly.
Washington Redskins with Shanahan has been trying to rebuild ever since Shanahan got there 3 4 years ago. Whereas the Colts just now are starting to rebuild. They got rid of, like Nate said, most of their key players, most of their stars. Even though Luck might be more NFL ready playing in a pro style system, he's gonna have a lot harder time, not getting sacked because the offensive line's not gonna be as good as they used to be. He's gonna have a hard time making complete passes because the wide receivers aren't gonna be as good as he would expect them to be. And it's just gonna be a really tough season for Andrew Luck versus RG3.
Right. I just think RG3 has that wow factor that can just that can just really make him shine throughout the season. And real quick with Mike Shanahan, I think it's almost like a dangerous combination with him and RG3. Dangerous as in I feel like Shanahan has kind of lost it recently. Like I feel like ever since John Elway, he just has not had the same success since. Talk
I
about his quarterbacks: Brian Greasy, Jake Plummer, Jay Cutler. Um, all those quarterbacks. It just is not worked out in my opinion.
I don't know. I mean, of those quarterbacks you just named, Brian Greasy's easily the worst.
Right.
Um, Plummer and Cutler both took them to the AFC games, to the playoffs. Not AFC games. That makes sense.
Color did not take him to the
Oh wait,
playoffs.
no, he was one game away from taking them to
Color
the playoffs.
Color made him look really good, and he was a really good quarterback. And I guess it's more of a team issue. I'm just talking about in general. Uh, Mike Shannon has not really produced since John Elway retired. Is all I'm saying. So I just feel like his genius or whatever has been kind of like been shattered a little bit, just because it hasn't been he hasn't been very consistent as far as producing every single year.
But also, if I may,
Go ahead.
after John Elway, Brian Greasy wasn't very good. Jake Plummer, we got from Arizona Cardinals. He wasn't a young quarterback anymore.
No, he was still young, but
Really? No. He
when we first got him in 2003, he was only. I mean, he was 2000. I believe he was only 28 or 29, but I mean,
20 or 29.
28 or 29.
Oh.
He wasn't like he wasn't young, but he
I
wasn't
mean, he was past the time where he could be molded into a great quarterback.
maybe.
And then with Cutler, you could see Cutler was starting to improve. He was playing a little bit more consistently throughout. Before Shanahan got fired.
That's true.
Um, and then in Washington, he's had Donovan McNabb, who honestly wasn't doing as well as he was in the Eagles.
Well, real quick, Donovan McNabb has said publicly that he just had a really bad experience in Washington with Kyle Shanahan, the offensive coordinator, and Mike Shanahan's son, and Mike Shanahan because they don't. He says that they don't make the offense geared toward like the person with the most talent or the quarterback's talents or whatever. So Donovan wasn't really getting um, plays that were made for him. They were just trying to make their own offense work. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I guess, but
So I'm just a little concerned, is all I'm saying.
also McNabb went to Minnesota for a little bit. He didn't do too well in Minnesota either.
Right,
So
he was definitely in the downward part of
I
his
mean,
career.
even
I'll
towards
give you that, but
even towards the end of his career and with the Eagles, he wasn't doing very good. So well, I wouldn't say he wasn't doing good. He just wasn't producing as well as he should be. You could tell he was on a heading downward.
right,
And then after him, they had Rex Grossman. They didn't really have too many good quarterbacks, in my opinion, that Shanahan really could craft. I don't think Shanahan's really had a chance to be able to craft a great quarterback ever since Elway quit.
That's true. Like I said, I guess it's been more of like a team thing. He hasn't had the best teams or the best quarterbacks either. But I don't know. You look at Bill Belichick, who's been just successful. He's had Tom Brady, obviously, this whole entire time, but he's been successful in the early part of this decade and the later part of this decade, and or of the 2000s and the beginning part of this new decade. So I don't know. I just feel like he's hasn't lived up to what he could have. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Um, I know we're kind of on a short tangent talking about Bill Belichick, but Belichick also he drafts really well. A couple years ago, he had two or three first round draft picks. He um he scouts really well. That's one of the things I heard a lot about Bill Belichick is his scouting powers. With Brady, he's had Brady, like you said, ever since Drew Bledsoe got injured, and Brady has been producing a lot. I don't know if you could credit how good the Patriots are with because he's had Brady for so long. There was the one season where Brady got hurt with Matt Castle, and they ended up being able to pick it up well a little bit after the initial stump. But also, Matt Castle had a lot of talent. He had Randy Moss at the time. He had uh who
Wes
else?
Welker. Who else?
Walker. He had I can't remember his name now. He's one of their
Dion.
hmm?
Huh? Who? Well, who is it?
He had one. It was one of their older wide receivers.
Troy Brown. I have no idea.
Point
Anyways,
being, point being though, he had a lot of he had a lot of
right. It
tools to
was
help
based
him.
off the system. I guess is what you're trying to say.
So Bill Belichick might be a great coach, but he hasn't really shown that he groom players to be great. He's just generally found players that can be. He's found great players to make other players look great, if that makes sense.
I guess. I mean, I'm not saying. I mean, we drafted Tom Brady in the sixth round. I mean, he wasn't exactly like a great player to start off with, or supposedly. But I don't know. I would just say that Shanahan, compared to all these other coaches, even Andy Reid, he's gone to five NFC Championship games. Obviously, he hasn't won a Super Bowl, but it's way more times than Shanahan. And Shanahan's been in the playoffs. I don't even know how many times. How many times would you say he's been in the playoffs? Since John Elway, maybe three times, maybe.
He went there once with Plummer, once or twice.
He went there twice with Plummer, lost to the Colts both times. Kind of depressing. Uh, Oh, actually, wait. He went there, I think, three times with Plummer. Actually, maybe could be because I remember he lost to the Colts twice, and they beat the Patriots, um, in one of the other games. But basically, and he didn't go with color, and I don't think he went with grease either. So,
That's because Chris was a terrible
well, I'm not
quarterback.
defending him, but maybe three times. We'll go with that. Um, so I don't know. I just feel like compared to other coaches, he just has not been as successful. Um, okay, maybe. Okay, you want to go to the next topic?
Um. So yeah, RG3 is probably gonna do better than Luck. Even
Yes. Some bottom line, RG3 is going to have a better season than Andrew Luck.
although don't count Luck out, he's definitely gonna have a good season. I think I don't think he'll go past 8-8. He might make it to 8-8, but he's probably gonna have
He'll
six,
be
10,
lucky to
7,
make it.
9.
He'll be lucky to make it 8-8. Um, our next topic is about all the arrests that are happening in the
31.
NFL. 31 arrests. Is that
According to
the number?
NFL.com, there's been 31 arrests this
31 arrests,
offseason.
which has to be some sort of record for like a summer off season. Um, that's a huge list. Just to name off some of the more key ones. Oh, 7 Lions got arrested. Just so you know, I'm not gonna name off every single one. Elvis Dumerville, which is a big deal to us because we're huge Broncos fans.
Although he never got no charges were
No
ever
charges
pressed.
were yeah, no charges were charged or whatever. But yeah, still a big deal. Adrian Peterson got arrested. Kenny Britt, Marshawn Lynch, Darius Hayward Bay, Brandon Merriweather, and Des Bryant all got arrested, just to name some of them. So that's really disappointing.
It's more disappointing when you find out. Like, I mean, Des Bryant, he had the aggravated assault. Adrian
To his
Peterson
mother.
to his
Just
mom,
oh my
of all
gosh.
people. Adrian Peterson had resisting arrest. I don't know what he was originally being arrested
Right.
for.
Me neither. He
Um,
was just getting into it with the police.
wait, no, I think Adrian Peterson was also aggravated assault. I think he was being let out somewhere, but again, I'm not quite sure. Um, and Elvis Dumervil was aggravated assault with a firearm. But
Right.
a lot of these were actually DUIs, which I found really disappointing. I guess. Oh, Nick Farley got arrested too for
Nick
DUI.
Fairley,
Yeah.
one of the Lions, and by the way, Aaron Ross, their cornerback, got arrested.
Again.
I think it was for DUI again, maybe. Regardless, he's off the team now because it was his second arrest just this offseason.
I guess having 31 arrests with most of them being DUIs is a lot better than the year that Minnesota Vikings had like 17 arrests for the Love Boat
All right,
shenanigans.
right, yeah,
But
that's a different story, yeah.
it's just kind of disappointing to see these NFL players. They got drafted into colleges, from colleges. They're not dumb people. They have to be fairly smart not only to get to a college team, but also to remain playing for college. You have to maintain a decent GPA,
Right.
and just having them all be arrested for something as stupid as drinking and driving, especially when they're rich enough that they could hire a cab driver or even their own personal driver maybe. So
Yeah, I mean, Doomerville's sticks out to me just because his was for brandishing a weapon, like while he was in his car driving somewhere and he was in a stoplight, and it's just really stupid. Like, why would you do that? Someone's gonna call the cops, unless he was being threatened, which we don't know all the details.
well,
But
I guess also one of the reports I heard, and a lot of these are unconfirmed too. These stories was that he accidentally flashed his weapon when he got pulled
accidentally,
over.
accidentally.
Yeah, and the cop saw it and thought that he was trying to flash him. But again, these are all unconfirmed, so no one really knows for sure what happened.
Yeah, and as far as we know, the Broncos haven't issued any kind of punishment or any sort of suspension or anything so far. So we'll see where that goes. Hopefully, it's nothing severe if anything happens. But because we're already kind of uh messed up already for our linebackers. But yeah, I don't know. It's just disappointing, especially with all these I would say high profile players to have all these arrests for various reasons, especially for DUI. So.
Yeah, although yeah, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, let's head off to our next topic, which I believe is
Top
our
10 list.
top 10 list. It's our favorite kind of
List.
list, favorite topic. Or we love doing top 10, top 5 lists. This episode we're doing a top 10 for the top 10 running backs in the league. The criteria for this is who are the top 10 running backs right now if they're all healthy and if they played a full 16 game season. So why don't you start us off with your number 10?
All right, well, I'll go from 10 to 6.
No, just go one by one. We'll
All
just
right.
go back and forth real quick.
My number 10 is LaShawn McCoy.
Okay. Just okay. I'll go
Oh, do you want me
next.
to describe why?
I'll just say mine. Okay, mine's Jamal Charles. I put him there because just because he had a really good 2010 season. He was injured last year, but I think he's gonna bounce back. So I don't know. I think is really tough at the back end of this top 10 deciding who you wanted. But I think Jamal Charles deserves a spot right there.
Yeah. Um, who's your number 9?
Yeah. So my number 9 is Michael Turner. I'm gonna just leave it at that. Who's your number 9?
I have Jamal Charles.
Okay. I guess same reasons I had. I guess
Yeah.
mainly.
I was kind of expecting to have him a little bit higher, but I haven't seen him play too terribly much. He
Right.
had that
Really,
one,
he just had that one really good season. That's all really basing off.
and
So.
he was looking to have a really good season last year before the injury. So
Right. Okay, my number 8, kind of debatable, is Chris Johnson. Only because he's number 8 because he's kind of been a little bit off the past 2 years. He had that really great season where he rushed for over 2,000 yards like 3 years ago, but since then he hasn't been as good. I don't really know why. He still rushed for I think 1,000 yards both seasons, barely, and he had a really horrible start last season. I guess due to contract disputes, maybe kind of slowed him down. But I don't know. I just think that the backs ahead of him have proven more. They're more consistent, and I just think they're better running backs. So who's your number 8?
my number 8 was Steven Jackson.
Okay, my number 7 was Steven Jackson. Um, what I'll say about him is he's been very consistent. He's like 29 years old now, so he's probably reached his peak already for the St. Louis Rams. But he's been a very consistent back. If he was injured part of last season, I just think if he stays healthy for a whole season, he's going to rush for at least 1,300 yards or so. He'll probably be the main focal point of that offense this season. So I think he's just a stud. He's scary. I don't want to get hit by him. Like, yeah, I don't want to hit by him at all. So, um, yeah, Steven Jackson, number 7 for me.
I have no, my number 7 is Michael Turner. I think with Matt Ryan sometimes not really producing as much as he should. Turner definitely gets the ball a lot. He has to prove himself a lot. Um, and he's a decent wide receiving running back too. So that's why I think Michael Turner's pretty not very much up there.
Okay. All right. My number 6 is Frank Gore, and he's there because obviously the 49ers center their offense around him. He's had 1,500 yard plus rushing seasons. He's been very consistent. He's been the focal of the 49ers since he's been there. Um, so I just think he's a very good running back, and also, like I said in the last podcast, he was the 25th ranked player of 2012, voted by the players. So some pretty high praise.
For my number 6, I have Ray Rice. He's he's a smaller back, but he's really compact, kind of like Maurice Jones-Drew. I hear that
Definitely.
comparison a lot. And he's a really good wide receiving running back too. He's just really
Very good. Yeah, he has great hands.
and he's really young if I'm not
No,
mistaken.
he is.
So he's
A lot
just gonna get better for a while.
right.
He hasn't reached his peak yet. So and he's surrounded by a good team. He's surrounded by Flacco who can throw well. Um, he has a pretty good offensive line. He has a solid defense because defense helps a lot with running games, I guess.
Right. Yeah, actually, my number 5 is Ray Rice, and yeah, just to add to Jay just a little bit, he definitely has a lot of upside. He's still only like 25, 26 years old, so he'll be here for a while. So I think Ray Rice is a very, very good choice, number 5 spot for me. You
My 5 spot was Chris Johnson.
okay?
I kind of put him up there because he had the 2 really good years, and then there's a lot of issues last year. Um, in my opinion, it's kind of hard to see how good quarter or running backs like Chris Johnson are, because for the first half of his year or of his career, he had Vince Young at quarterback, which just kind of spreads the defense out a lot more because if Vince Young chose to play action and they were dedicated to Chris Johnson, then Vince Young's just going to score 20, 30 yard run. So I think with running quarterbacks like uh Vince Young,
Yes,
uh
Vince Young.
sorry, I was about to say Vincent Jackson. I was like, that's not right. With Vince Young, Michael Vick, and Tim Tebow, you generally see their running backs doing a lot better. For example, McGahee last year was in the top 10 for yards. I don't have the exact number. I think Nate does,
Willis McGahee ran for 1,199 yards,
which was ranked 7, I believe,
eighth,
8th. Um,
and 4 touchdowns. Just to say that, anyways.
yeah. Which McGahee came out of really nowhere. He was the Ravens running back for a while. Behind Ray Rice, so he didn't get a run that often. I'm so Chris Johnson when he first came here had Vince Young who was already established as a running quarterback. LaShawn McCoy started doing really well with Michael Vick as quarterback.
Right.
So in my opinion, kind of hard to tell how good these people are going to do. Because there's a lot of other factors going on.
Okay, speaking of Sean McCoy, he's my number 4, which is probably also debatable. But just look at this. Last season, he rushed for 1,309 yards, 4.8 yards per carry, including 17 touchdowns, which was most for any running back. So I don't know. I played against LaShawn McCoy a couple times um, in NFL fantasy football. I personally didn't, but I swear, every single time I played with against him, he would just destroy my defense. I forgot what my defenses were that were playing against him, but he would just shred them. And this guy just could not be stopped. I heard there was a list in the NFL, and I think ESPN.com or NFL.com that said that LaShawn McCoy is the number one best cornerstone um, NFL player to build your team around under 25. So I just think this guy's a stud. He's gonna be here for a while. He's only been in the league for I think 2 or 3 years. It's not been long. So I just think with that season last year, with that 17 touchdowns that he had, which was five more than any other running back, I just think he's deserving of number 4 on my list.
And Chris Johnson and LaShawn McCoy also have speed. They're
Lots of speed.
probably one of the faster running backs in the league. I don't know anyone faster than Chris Johnson.
I'd put Jamal Charles top 3 also. But yeah, I agree with that.
These are something that defines them is their speed. As soon as they get past the first line,
It's over.
I mean, like Jamal Charles, his first year, he was able to break tackles. LaShawn McCoy was able to break tackles. I think Chris Johnson kind of break tackles. And cornerbacks aren't generally very good at tackling, anyways. Generally the safeties are, but if you get past the cornerback and you can outrun the safety, um, you're going to do pretty good too. I think speed kind of what defines a really good running back.
I agree. All right, who's your number 4?
My number 4 is Darren McFadden. Um,
What?
I put him kind of high, just I guess as a Broncos fan having to go against him twice a year, it's kind of tough not to say that he's a good running back. He breaks through front lines easily. The first game and the only game really that we played against him last year, it just seemed like every time he touched the ball, they would get an 8-9 yard gain at least. Sometimes he got stuffed, but most of the time he just ran through. Um, and I guess he might be ranked kind of high, but honestly, at a certain point, it gets kind of hard to rank which running backs are which because of so many factors running in there. I think McFadden comes from a kind of a broken team in Raiders, especially last year. Uh, this was before Al Davis died, so there wasn't that distraction there. But they had Jason Campbell, who was an okay quarterback. They don't really have good running backs there. Their defense was okay after losing Oswald. So I think amidst all of that turmoil, Darren McFadden was the one point there that was still as consistent as he's been the years before.
Okay, just real quick. The reason I don't have Jerry McFadden in my list is because this guy has only had one 1,000-yard rushing season. He's very injury prone. I know this list is if they weren't injured, but I haven't really seen him play a whole entire season really. So last season he was leading the league in rushing before he got injured, which is a huge deal. And he's gonna be a top 10 running back for sure eventually, maybe even this year. But I think just with the lack of production, with the lack of that one really good season at least, I just think it's kind of too early. But that's just my opinion. Um, my number 3 is running back is Maurice Jones-Drew. Um, this guy is, like we said, very similar to Ray Rice, very small and compact. He led the league in rushing with 1,606 yards and 8 touchdowns. Partially probably because Blaine Gabbert can't really do anything, so
Because Blaine
he
Gabbert doesn't know how to throw a
was no,
football.
and yeah, he's I don't know, kind of scared to get hit. So I definitely have to just keep giving Maurice Jones-Drew the ball to carry that load for the team. So very good running back. Yeah, number 3. Who do you got number 3?
I have Maurice Jones-Drew too.
All right,
Basically for everything that you said.
all right, cool.
Um,
Anything else to add?
I just I just want to add that he's also pretty hard to take down because he's so small and compact.
Right. Yep, definitely.
I was watching obviously replay video or highlight videos are different because they only show the best. But most of the highlight videos, he didn't get tackled down. He was more dragged along the ground by 2 or 3 other people.
Yeah. No, those small players like Ray Rice and Maurice Jones-Drew are very tough to tackle, definitely. My number 2 running back was Arian Foster. It was actually pretty tight between 1 and 2, but I put him at 2, just because he's also pretty new. He's only really had about 2 full seasons where we can gauge how good he is, because that's when he first started to start. But just this guy, he's just so hard to tackle. He has very solid speed. He kind of reminds me of Terrell Davis. He's very shifty, smart with the way he moves. Doesn't have he's not the fastest guy nor the strongest, but he's still hard to tackle. He's very smooth, I guess, when he runs. And last season, 1,224 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns. That was from not even playing all the games. I think he missed, a few games, 3 games, 2 games maybe.
Yeah, he
So
missed a few games.
he probably would have led the league in rushing, or at least been top 2 or 3, um, if he played all the games. So he's another back for the future, gonna be a beast. So
Um, I have Arian Foster at number 2 also. I think he also has kind of he has a Brady effect, what I like to call. This Arian Foster, a guy who went through 2 to 3 practice squads, before someone being put on the IR got him onto the actual team as a third string running back, no less. Um, when he came out, no one knew where he came from. No one knew who this guy was. I remember in my Madden game, he was ranked as a 55 running back.
there you go. It
Um,
shows.
he just
Yeah.
came out of nowhere. He just, he has the intangibles. He's not. He wasn't not drafted for a reason. He was undrafted for a reason. Let me put it that way. I don't think he put up impressive numbers. He's not the fastest. He's not the strongest. He's elusive though. He has stuff that you can't teach other running backs. You can try to, but you can't really teach the stuff that Arian Foster does.
Right. Yeah, I definitely 100% agree with what you just said. Um, our number ones are both the same, so we'll just talk about them real quick. Number one for both of us, Adrian Peterson,
Assuming that the ACL and MCL
is
injury is not going to slow him down
right, and
this
even
year.
with that, I think he's still a beast. But yeah, Adrian Peterson, been in the league for 5 years, has a career high 1,760 yards rushing in the season about 3 years ago, and had 18 touchdowns 2 years ago. But yeah, this guy is just hard to stop. The best comparison for me is like
Pickup
Jim.
truck.
What?
Pickup truck.
Pickup truck. Pickup truck slash Jim Brown from the 50s and 60s. Because if you watch Jim Brown's videos, that guy was just hard to tackle. Like there'd be literally like 3 guys on him, and they just be knocked out. But Adrian Peterson's like what 6'2", 6'1". He's 6'1", 217. Usually running backs are smaller; they're like 6 feet or smaller. So I just think his size for being a running back is very advantageous, and with like a 4.4 4.4 speed, like this guy is just ridiculous. Like if he can just get a great team around him, like not Christian Ponder as a quarterback is what I'm saying. This guy could be an all-time great. So Adrian Peterson, if he's not injured, he's the best running back in the league in my opinion, hands down.
And unlike Chris Johnson, LaShawn McCoy, and uh, or no, just those two. The thing that sets Adrian Peterson apart is that he's never had a quarterback who would run. He had Brett Favre for 2 years. I'm not sure who he had before Brett Favre.
Me
Um,
neither.
he had Donovan McNabb for a little bit, and by a little bit I mean like 2 games.
yeah.
He has Christian Ponder, and these are all quarterbacks that aren't going to make those 20, 30-yard runs. And yet, he's still able to push defense linemen away. He's still consistently able to break through the line. Um, and once he's in the open field, it's probably gonna end up being a touchdown, more likely.
Or him tackling you to the ground as he runs over you. So this guy is just ridiculous. He still had 970 yards last season, just playing 12 games. So I mean, I don't know. He's just unstoppable in my opinion. So yeah, those are our top 10 running backs um, heading into this season if they're all healthy and not not injured. So our last topic is we just wanted to seed all of our
Playoff
playoff
predictions.
teams that we predicted were going to be going to the playoffs in the last podcast. So why don't you get us started?
All right, so I'm gonna start with the AFC. I think the number one seed is gonna be the Patriots,
All right.
followed by the Ravens,
okay.
then Broncos and the Texans, as the
Same
divisional
here,
leaders.
man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, it was kind of hard not to put Broncos at the second seed. When Peyton Manning was with the Colts.
I'm
You
trying.
debated who was going to be 3, 4, 5, and 6 because 1 and 2 was going to be Manning and Brady.
We're trying to be objective here. I mean, I easily could have put the Broncos as a top 2 seed as well, but I was trying to be like, maybe it'll just be a 3 seed. But
And if Doomerville ends up staying with the Broncos, which I think at this point, there hasn't been any extra news about Doomerville. I think it's a safe assumption that he's going to stay with the Broncos. Peyton Manning has a lot of young talent in Decker and Demarius Thomas. He has a lot of veterans too, in Stokely and
oh yeah, that's right. He's back.
yeah, he has some solid tight ends. He has Willis.
Tammy, Dreesen,
He has
all those boys.
You're right. It is just who he has.
Yeah.
Um,
Basically, Manning is Dreesen. He's got Tammy. He's got Andre Caldwell. He's got Demarius Thomas. He's got Eric Decker. He's got he's got Brandon Stokely. He just got all these boys to play with him. He's just I don't know, man. It's just a good
and
season.
he has a defense that's a lot better
Who's
than
he
the
got
Colts
on
defense.
defense? Who's he got on defense?
He's got Von Miller, Doomerville, Bailey, Porter, DJ Williams.
DJ Williams is going to be there after 6 weeks, I believe. But all you got to say is Champ Bailey 6 times and we're good because that's all you need. So, yeah, I don't know. Broncos
and,
are loaded.
the Colts defense wasn't that. The Colts defense was solid with Peyton Manning. Even though their defense wasn't that good as last year as shown.
Right, and it's been described by NFL analysts that the Colts defense was a very speed oriented defense, and their defense was based off what Peyton Manning did. So if Peyton Manning could get them to like a very good lead, defense could be more aggressive and pounce on the other team. That's how they won so many games. So
and when you're down 14 points in a game, you're gonna throw a lot more. You don't have to worry about having the front seven all blitzing forward to stop the run.
Exactly.
But then with Tracy Porter, DJ Williams after 6 weeks, and Champ Bailey, you also feel really confident in doing one-on-ones,
exactly,
man-to-man. With Von Miller and Elvis Dumerville, you're not afraid of not getting to the quarterback in time, especially since you know that they're not going to be running the ball with a 14-point deficit. And even with a 14-point deficit, we still have some of the other we have other linemen who aren't as prolific as
prolific.
Prolific.
What is that? What? Okay.
As Dumerville and Miller, but they're still pretty solid.
Right, I agree. Who are your 2 wild cards?
5 at Steelers with 5 and Jets at 6.
Okay, mine was Chiefs at 5, which probably stuns everyone in the world, whoever listens to this. And 6 is also Jets, which I'm surprised we were actually that close. Real quick, I put the Chiefs there. I just think it's a very controversial pick and probably might be a stupid pick, but I feel like the Chiefs are going to do really well. They have everyone coming back, in my opinion. They got Jamal Charles coming back. They have Eric Berry coming back, which were big losses last season. That's all I know they have coming back from injuries. But those 2 people, they were probably the biggest reasons why they got into the playoffs in 2010. So with them back, with Dwayne Bowe being a beast, with Castle just being solid, with Brandon Flowers being a shutdown corner, I think they have a chance to make some noise. Oh, don't forget Tom Biley and Derek Johnson as linebackers. They're no one. They aren't people to forget. So they're going to be really good this year, I think.
I put the Steelers there. I think that's also kind of a risky choice. The Steelers have made it to the playoffs almost every year since Ben's first time to the playoffs. Obviously Ben Roethlisberger, he's a young quarterback, fairly young, but he plays like he's near the end of his career, especially last year with all those injuries. But it just seems like the Steelers has always found a way to make it to the playoffs. Last year for most of the season, no one thought the Steelers was going to make it to the playoffs. And he won the Cleveland game. That was a really big deal. They've just somehow consistently found ways to win games.
Right. And I'm here to tell you that the Steelers aren't going to make the playoffs this season because the Jets are going to make the playoffs with Tim Tebow.
Yes, Jets. The Jets have already announced that Tim Tebow is going to take over on the 20-yard once they're inside
red zone,
line,
the red
aka
zone.
red zone. That's already a fifth of the field.
Right.
They're going to be playing in.
And I've listened to talk shows. I've heard like Skip Bayless say on a First Take that it's probably going to go from Tim Tebow is going to start being the quarterback for the red zone. Then it's going to be like they're going to switch switch quarterbacks, every other quarter, and then next is going to be alternating series, and then eventually it's going to be Tebow starting. So we're going to say in 5 games, Tebow's going to be a starting quarterback.
And you know, at 20 yards, he's already proven that he can run a touchdown at past the 30 and 40. He's proven that to the Jets firsthand when he won the game against the Jets last year. So what happens when you're at the 30-yard line, second and 15, Mark Sanchez just getting sacked? Who do you put in? You know,
Tebow, yeah,
and
exactly.
soon it just keeps pushing back and back. Tebow's only gonna get better. He got the improvement that he had since his first game against the Raiders to his last game last year against the Patriots. Maybe not the Patriots, against the Steelers. He's proven that he can win gun shows against. He won a gun
And the
show against the Steelers
Vikings, the Vikings,
and the Vikings. Christian Ponder.
right? That's probably more of the reason.
So he's won a gun show. He's shown that he can outrun if he has to. He's shown that he can stay in the pocket if he has to.
Right, and real quick, Tebow has been working with kind of like a passing coach, a movement coach this off season in Los Angeles, who's supposedly trying to help with his throwing motion and his stature in the pocket. So we'll see if that helps. Our NFC.
Well, you want to
What's
finish
that?
talking about Patriots, Ravens, and Texans too?
Oh yeah, I guess we just talked about the Broncos. Yeah, just real quick, I got the Patriots number one because I feel like with the addition of their 20 tight ends that they have this season, it's apparently they have Gronkowski, obviously Aaron Hernandez. We also have Daniel Fells, who was a Bronco last season. They have Vishante Shanko, who's with the Vikings, and they also have Jake Ballard, who was on the Giants, who also started at some point. So they're loaded on tight end, but they're kind of overstocked in my opinion. But they'll do well. They'll still do well. I just wanted to mention their tight ends, but they still got Brady. They still got Wes Walker, who just got a hair transplant, just so you know. And
A hair transplant?
yeah, that's what I heard. They got a hair transplant. I don't know. He needs endorsing it too. But the guy, they still have Bill Belichick coaching. Their defense only has room for them to go up. So I think they're going to be doing really well next season.
And on top of that, Brady has been playing better. It seems. Uh,
Seriously.
as he gets older, I mean, he had the slumps that year. He got hurt, obviously. But I mean, last year he lost 2 games, I think, 3 games.
The Patriots went 14-2, I think, last year. Well,
Um,
in the playoffs, they lost, Super Bowl, but yeah, you get it.
and they lost the Super Bowl. They were one drop pass away from winning the Super Bowl with Wes Walker. They now have Brandon Lloyd, who you know seems like he has glue on his fingers.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
even with San Francisco, even before he became a high profile wide receiver, a lot of San Francisco, was he on San Francisco
I don't remember. I don't think he was.
or Chicago? No, he was on
It's
Chicago.
Chicago, I think is
Yeah,
what it was. Yeah.
a lot of even when he was with Chicago before he became a high profile wide receiver, Chicago fans will tell you that he was still an amazing. He still had like the amazing catches and stuff. I mean, he didn't get thrown to very often, but the times he
He's
would
only
have just
6 feet
crazy.
too, so.
So, I mean, they're kind of that lacking in vertical depth ever since Randy Moss left. Ocho Cinco wasn't doing as well, but they've shown that they don't have a problem with having just short, well, quote unquote short wide receivers.
Right, Welker had 1,500 yards plus receiving last season, so it's no problem there. Real quick with the Ravens and Houston, my 2 and 4 seeds. The Ravens are gonna just be solid again as they always are, be in top 2 or 3 seed. I have them at 2, and with Ray Rice, being there, Joe Flacco another year under his belt might be better. The Ravens defense, although Terrell Suggs might be a little injured in the beginning of the season, they're always doing well. So yeah, I mean Ravens are just they're always there. And as far as Houston goes, I mean they obviously showed us what they can do last season. Aaron Foster is a cornerstone of that team. Um, Matt Schaub is 1,000 times better than who was their quarterback,
TJ Yates.
T.J. Yates. So with Matt Schaub there, they're at least going to be 11-win team in my opinion. So they're right there too. So
And with the Steelers just on a decline, the Ravens were already close to taking a number one spot from Steelers in their division. Just the Steelers getting worse and worse.
they've already won the division at least a couple times.
Yeah,
So
and like just the Steelers getting more and more worse. as years pass by. I don't think the Ravens are gonna have too hard of a time just dominating that division.
All right, do you want to talk about the NFC now?
Yeah, so NFC was significantly harder to put.
So much harder, you don't even know.
With the AFC, there's something that the Patriots define the AFC. Peyton Manning defines the AFC. It's not that hard to find who's gonna be how good and why. With the NFC, it's kind of harder. They're
Loaded.
they're all really talented. They're all talented for specific reasons, and they're also not as consistent, I think, as the AFC. Um, Saints had a really good season, but then sometimes they'll just lose games. Packers lost a game to the Kansas City Chiefs last year after going 14-0,
Yeah.
or no, 13-0. But this is who I have. My divisional leaders are Saints, Packers, 49ers, and Eagles in that order.
Yes. All right. Yeah, real quick, mine are 49ers, Packers, Saints, and then the Eagles, which is just the hardest top four I've like ever done. But um, yeah, with San Francisco being on top, I mean, I guess they're on top. I don't really know. I mean, I just put them there because I think that they're the best team. They just came off in an NFC Championship game. They have, in my opinion, the best defense in the league. Patrick Willis is just, oh my gosh, he's so good. With Alden Smith, Carlos Rogers, a top 5 or top 10 corner. Um, they're just really good, and Alex Smith should probably improve this season, in my opinion, with more time to work with Jim Harbaugh, and Frank
Randy
Gore's
Moss.
Randy Moss is there. Michael Crabtree's still there. He's gonna get more catches, or he should, with Randy Moss getting some more double teams. And they have Vernon Davis, and of course Frank Gore is a cornerstone of that offense. So I mean, there's no reason to think they're not going to go at least 12-4, 13-3, probably 13-3. So
Actually, as you were talking, and as I was thinking that Saints probably won't make it to number one seed. And I'm gonna actually switch them out to number three.
okay, who's number one now?
Number one would be Packers again.
Okay,
Number two is 49ers, and then three Saints.
and then
Um,
all right.
the reason why I decided to move the Saints down, and I might even put them at number four, is because I forgot that they lost a huge chunk of their defense. Jonathan Vilma is suspended for most of the year. They lost Tracy Porter. A lot of the people on defense that they've had, they're gonna lose for at least the first half of the season.
And obviously Sean Payton not being there to call plays is going to be a little different.
And yeah, on paper they might seem like the same team, but that's definitely gonna be a huge distraction. That's definitely gonna have a huge impact on them. Drew Brees will still be Drew Brees. He still has a great offense, but that's definitely gonna be a huge distraction. I don't think, and I do think that will end up affecting them in a negative way this season.
So what about the Packers? What about them makes you think they'll be number one in the NFC?
Um, the Packers somehow found a way to have their last ranked defense, or second to last ranked defense, still choke up teams. You see a lot of games with the Patriots and the Saints where it's just touchdown after touchdown after touchdown, and it's just a really close game with really high numbers. Packers have found a way to make their ranked defense stop the other team. They have interceptions in crucial areas of the game. They turn over the ball at crucial areas of the game, and even though they don't, the defense isn't as consistent. It wasn't too rare to see a Packers win a game with a huge number, with the other team having low numbers at points, scoring points. I think the Packers have learned a lot about their offense last year. I think they learned a lot more about their defense last year. I think their defense is gonna get a lot better, and I think that's why they're gonna be the number one seed in the NFC.
All right, yeah, with the Packers, I had a hard time putting them at number two, just because I feel like the Bears and the Lions, but especially the Bears are gonna do really well this season, with color there, and it's gonna just change the dynamic of that division. But anyways, I had New Orleans at three, and I kind of agree with Jay. I just feel like they could be number one seed with all the pieces there, but they're just missing too much. That it's going to be all about Drew Brees and what he does, and he'll do a lot, but he can't do everything. And in four, we both got Philadelphia. Number four on paper, they might be the most talented team in my
But
opinion,
they
in
were
the
also the
NFL
most
or at least the
talented team
NFC.
last year.
Exactly, but it's all on paper. So I mean, with Michael Vick, LaShawn McCoy, Sean Jackson, Jeremy Maclin, Brent
So
Selleck, and obviously that defense with Austin Guar, Rogers, Cromartie. They lost Sante Samuel to the Falcons, but oh well. Um, they they just have a really formidable team in my opinion. But I feel like that NFC East division is going to be really tough to win. So I feel like even if they do get the 4th seed and win that division, they're going to be like limping like 10-6 or something like that because I feel like they're all going to just eat each other up in that division. With RG3 on the Redskins, obviously the Cowboys, and the defending Super Bowl champion Giants, who aren't going to make the playoffs in my opinion. But they're all just going to eat each other up, I think, and I think the Eagles will will make the playoffs as a division leader, but with not as good of a record.
and with the Giants, it just seems like they didn't make it to the playoffs ever since their last Super Bowl appearance. If I'm not mistaken.
They might have had one, I think, but they like lost in the first round. But yeah, John should probably make the playoffs
And
again, like in 3 years. But
and the thing about the Giants is everything has to fall into place, for them to make it to the Super Bowl and win.
they were
Um,
lucky both times.
but we're not talking about the Giants here. We're
Anyways,
talking
yeah.
about the Eagles.
Sorry.
No, and the Eagles. The Eagles really came together at the end of last season. They were one game away from making it to the playoffs after starting 0-4, or at least 0-2.
Finished 8-8. So
Um, the Eagles, a lot of the problem that people thought the Eagles had last year was that they just didn't have chemistry. They signed basically a whole new team last year, in free agency. As we said last podcast, if there was a free agency agent, the Eagles probably talked to them at some point.
right.
um, um,
Exactly.
and they really got to come together last year. This year, they have an off season. They have training camp to really like mesh the chemistry together. They were almost to the playoffs after having a horrible start to the season. I think they're gonna have no problems this year making it to the playoffs.
Right. I mean, on paper, they should be one of the favorites in the NFC to win it, in my opinion. But anyway, just one more thing.
Of course, assuming Michael
Right.
Vick stays healthy.
Yeah, assuming he stays healthy. Hopefully he does. But one more thing, talking about Michael Vick, he's made comments that he thinks the Eagles are going to be dynasty are going to be dynasty, and those are really premature comments because they haven't been in the playoffs with Michael Vick, or I don't think they have, right?
And
So
honestly,
it's
if
just
if he wants to be a
so
dynasty,
premature. Are you kidding me? Like,
if he wants to be a dynasty this year, he has to compete against the Patriots, and how consistent they've been playing since the early early 2000s. He has to be competing against the Saints and how Drew Brees brought a team that was broken because of the hurricane and just rose them up to the Super Bowl. He's competing against Peyton Manning, who arguably changed the way quarterbacks played, and trying to be the quarterbacks of the old, where he's also the offensive coordinator as well as quarterback. Maybe if Michael Vick was in a different generation, he might that statement might stand, but I don't. I think that statement was not only premature but very well
way premature. It
uneducated.
doesn't even make any sense.
Uneducated.
I mean, why would you say you're a dynasty when you haven't won a playoff game with the current
I
lineup?
think I think what
And
he meant to say was that they were going to be a dynasty in Philadelphia.
no, that's what he meant to say. But
Oh,
why would you say that? Like, if you haven't done anything, there's no reason
well,
to even think
the
that.
Eagles right now are probably the most talented that they've ever been, except for the year that they made it to the Super Bowl, which they might have lost because Donovan McNabb just
And
messed
To
them
was
up.
injured too in that game.
But
Um,
I think yeah, it was premature, but I think that he was kind of justified in saying that. Now that I know that he was talking about in Philadelphia, not in the NFL.
what do you mean? What's the difference between in Philadelphia compared to in the NFL?
I thought he meant like they were gonna be the Eagles team was gonna be a dynasty in the NFL, like the Tom Brady's gonna be a dynasty, like
Well, he thinks his team's going to be dynasty, like
people will look back
this
on the
year.
season like it's the
Like
Eagles season.
basically, he thinks that it's going to start from this season and going into the next 2 or 3 seasons. That they're probably going to win each Super Bowl, like this Super Bowl, next Super Bowl, and like Super Bowl after that.
Then I guess,
So it's just too much confidence. It's almost like Rex Ryan like saying that, but
which is it's kind of nice to see, but it also means a little less from a quarterback who hasn't played a full season since he's gotten arrested.
I don't know. I think it's just too premature, but we'll see what happens with the Eagles.
And
They should win a lot of games. My 5 and 6 teams are the Dallas Cowboys at 5 and the Detroit Lions at 6. Who are yours?
I have Detroit Lions at 5 and the Bears at 6.
That's yeah, those are good picks. Why'd
And
you choose them?
like I said last time, last year Cincinnati or not, yeah, Cincinnati Ravens and the Steelers all made it to the playoffs. It could happen again. Yeah, it's a pretty tough conference to do that in. But the Lions played really well last year. They made it to the playoffs. Even
First
with
time in so many years.
they kind of had a broken team. Nick Farley wasn't playing fairly. They lost some key players. I think Best was also out. They have Calvin Johnson, who's a great wide receiver. They have a pretty good defense if they can learn to play well and play by the rules. They have
Yeah, not get arrested. Just some advice.
um they just they're a pretty good team. I think having them go to the playoffs is a gimme. Whether they make it as 5 seed or a 6 seed, I think for sure they're going to make it.
Right. And why'd you have the Bears at 6?
I have the Bears at 6 because um Color ever since moving to the Bears has matured a lot. He's no longer the crybaby that he was seen in the Broncos.
Right.
I think I know a lot of Broncos fans still talk to him like he is. Um, but it's only Broncos fans. You don't hear any other NFL fans talking about Cutler like he's a crybaby. Um, except for the NFC game where he hurt his leg. But
Yeah.
as they found out, that
Right.
was a lot more major than people thought. He could barely even walk on it. It was a knee injury.
Right.
Um, Cutler's evolved a lot. He's getting Brandon Marshall, which was the best he's ever done for either of them. The Bears, I think, are just a really great team.
In addition to Brand Marshall too, right?
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Did you?
Yeah, that's what I just said. With Marshall joining,
Uh,
and that's been the best since Cutler, for Cutler and
sorry, I was
Marshall.
looking at my two wild cards, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Bears were one of the two wild cards or whatever, because I feel like they're also going to be a big reason as to who comes out of that division as the winner. So I have Detroit at 6, but it could easily be the Bears, but I'll stick with Detroit. But Dallas at 5. I think the Cowboys are just they're too talented. Also, kind of like the Eagles, but not exactly. They're too talented. There's too many expectations um, for them not to make it. I think, but also with the additions of Morris Claiborne from LSU, sixth overall pick in this draft, and with Brandon Carr on the other side. Um, I think it'll really solidify their secondary, which was just horrible last season with Terrence Newman and Mike Jenkins. So I think just that addition will solidify the defense and really give or Rob Ryan something to work with. So.
And I've heard the Cowboys described as the team that should make it to the playoffs, but always stops themselves. Um, it's one of those cases where you I forgot how the quote goes, but it's truly a case of them losing the games for themselves as opposed to going against teams that are better than them. No, I mean if it's the St. Louis Rams versus Saints game, it's not like the St. Louis Rams lost the game for themselves. The Saints just are a better team. The Cowboys are a better team. They just don't play like a better team.
Right. They just don't live up to expectations, and part of that is just the whole team together isn't, unified. Like it's always like one part of the team is doing well, but there's always another part that's just not performing. And they could have easily made the playoffs last season if Tony Romo would have made that throw to Miles Austin against the Giants, and the Giants would have won the Super Bowl. So because they wouldn't have made it. So I don't know. They just make some just dumb mistakes. They're not very clutch, I guess. Tony Romo has a horrible December record when it matters most heading into the playoffs. So they need to just fix a few things, I think.
And it's not just I mean, it's easy to say Tony Romo this, Tony Romo that because he's the quarterback. 2 years ago, Week 15 or 16, Cowboys against the Colts, in a game
Dang.
which I think lots of people forget.
Yeah.
In a game I think a lot of people forget. The Cowboys were up 2 points. Less than 20 seconds left. Colts had run out timeouts, and they were doing a field goal, and they miss. But one of the Cowboys, for no reason at all, does an illegal move. I think he held the guy for a field goal. For blocking a field goal, they had a holding call called on them, which gave the Colts a second chance, which helped them win the game. I remember watching that game going, the Cowboys could have beat the Colts. The Colts when they were arguably one of the best teams in the AFC right now, next to the Patriots. And you guys lost it because of a special teams penalty.
Wow.
The Cowboys are not clutch. They're not very disciplined. I think they have all the tools they need to get to the playoffs. The Cowboys are always expected to make the playoffs every year, but one reason or another, they always just barely miss it. But yeah, I think that's why the Cowboys won't make it to the playoffs, even though they have all the tools to. And that's it for our episode, unless you have anything to add.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
You've been listening to the sports show featuring Jay and Nate. I'm Jay,
I'm Nate.
and you've been listening to our show.